This is a dish that I really love to eat. It has been something I've been cooking for years throughout my career, and I've cooked it in all different types of places. I cooked it in restaurants, on boats, in private residences, in my own home, on the market, from a Dutch box bicycle, and it is risotto. I find it just so delicious. The creaminess, the Parmesan cheese, the bite in the rice grain, and then pair it with a beautiful fish like the monkfish, what we're going to be doing today. So the dish that I'll be showing to you is a pancetta-wrapped monkfish with a pine nut and sage crunch, and we'll do a green asparagus risotto that's gonna bring creaminess to this dish. We have crunch, we have texture, we have fish, but then we also have this really yummy saltiness from the pancetta, and all together an absolute stellar dish. This is something that I call comfort food, but we're gonna be smoothing it up a little bit. It's gonna be looking beautiful. It's gonna really go well in a nice 3-course menu. It's gonna also go really well on its own. It's something that I like to cook for lunch or for dinner. When my friends come over, I wanna show you exactly how I do it. Just a few things that you really need to take care of when you make a beautiful risotto. You make sure that you have enough stock. You make sure you put enough Parmesan. You make sure that you heat it up last minute, just before it goes to the table, that creamy Parmesan is gonna make that beautiful sauce that binds around the rice grains. We're gonna top that with that lovely cooked monkfish in the pancetta with a crunch of the pine nuts and a little bit of sage, and all together a flavor bomb that definitely will fall into taste with anybody that you'll be cooking for. So let's crack on. We're gonna start with filleting the monkfish. Now you can go to your butcher and just get a fillet, but when you get a whole tail, it's really easy to carve it off. I'm gonna take care of the sinew. I'm gonna show you exactly how it's done. Beautiful fillet of monkfish. It has a little bit of tissue here on the end that we don't really want to have. We're gonna be carving that off later once we have filleted off the bone, but there's a large bone running right through the middle here. So with a nice sharp knife, we can slice exactly along that. Follow the bones. Filleting fish is a skill on its own. I'm not going in depth into filleting fish. I will definitely show you one day how you can clean up different fishes, like a turbo, like a sea bass, like a monkfish. But as you see today, all we need to do is make sure you have a sharp knife and you very gently follow wherever the bone takes you. It's almost like the fish is guiding me where I have to go. I can't see where I go, but I can feel it. I can feel where the bone is giving resistance. I can feel where I have to cut through. All the way down to the bottom. Gorgeous, nice and clean. There's not a bit of fish left there, and that's where you see that you have done a great job. Do the other side as well. Always a tad more difficult because you don't have the rest of the fish anymore. The rest is a little bit swimming in the air, but we still follow the bone, let the knife do the work, and gently slice down. Bones are a great ingredient for stock, for a fish stock. Whenever you do your own fish, keep bones, roast them in the oven, boil them in a nice stock, make yourself a delicious broth. Nothing should go to waste when you have a beautiful fish and something that is really fresh. So as we see here, a few bits that we need to take care of. Gonna carve the knife under and take off the bit of skin. When you get yours from the butcher, ask them to prepare your fillet. Make sure that they take that off, so you don't have to do it at home if you don't feel like. It goes on here. See, the knife slides under, just under there. Don't want to waste any of that beautiful fish. Just want to make sure that we get rid of the things that we don't really like to eat. And that's it. Perfectly prepared monkfish fillets. Really quickly, just clean up your cutting board a little bit, get the fish off. Don't need to change as yet. And we're gonna lay out the pancetta. Extra thin, extra fine sliced pancetta. but always look for the bits that has more meat than fat, because we're really gonna need it to stick around the monkfish. And we're gonna be making beautiful layers of the pancetta. It's going to be easiest when it comes from the fridge, because pancetta has a tendency to be really soft because there's such a high fat content on them. So we keep them in the fridge until just before laying out to make sure that it's easy to handle. And then we're going to be placing the monkfish on top. We're going to season it a little bit. I'm going to put some leaves of sage inside there. Just going to give it a beautiful flavor and a beautiful color as well. Until we have the really nice long layer of pancetta slices. Stunning. Now we will season our monkfish. A little bit on the top. Nicely seasoned on the bottom. And we're going to place that right on top. We're going to add a few sage leaves. Just make a little line all the way across the back of that monkfish fillet. That's about just right. And with your knife, you can fold over the pancetta all the way till there. Make sure this is a nice and tight roll. I want to push back the fillet a little bit so it fills up exactly where the pancetta is. And then we roll it over. Just like that. Trim the little extras. We can leave the top and the bottom. We're going to cut the monkfish fillet in half. A little bit easier, then later it fits in the pan. And it's easier to handle. So you put your two pieces on a tray. We're going to put it in the fridge, let it set really nicely, and we're going to continue with prepping our risotto. And there we are back. We have a nice clean cutting board. We are ready to prep our risotto. So we have this beautiful rice grains, carnaroli risotto, one of my favorite types of risotto rice. There's several variants of risotto rice, but one of my favorites always carnaroli, because it just has the tendency to hold a bite a little bit better than, let's say, its counterpart arborio or other types. We have a bunch of pine nuts that we're going to be toasting in the oven. We'll have an onion that I'm going to show you how to chop, give you a nice little tip on how to cut onions nicely, and a bit of butter to sweat it all together. So we'll start with cleaning up our onion. Cutting onions is a big problem for many, for chefs, for home cooks. Everybody knows the struggle of a perfectly cut onion, and I want to show you how I like to do it and just take away a little bit of that obstacle of these onions going all the way and I don't really know where to cut, and I have big pieces there and small pieces there and it's falling apart and it's just a drama. I have a little trick that's going to make cutting onions a breeze for literally anyone with any type of knife skills, any level of knife skills. We're going to cut the onion in half and then we're going to take out the heart. And like that, you have way easier bits of onion to attack. Now you can use a small knife if you're not so handy with a big one, and just make really nice and thin slices. I'm going to use the big one. I'm used to cutting a little bit, and like that, I make my onion julienne. Turn it around, split in half, and chop it again. And within a minute you have beautifully cut onions without the large chunks. Works with shallots, works with regular onions. But what you want to do is always take out that center. We can cut it afterwards if you need it. We don't need more than that. It goes straight in our risotto pot. There we go. Butter, Our recipe, 150 gram risotto rice. I use 10% butter for any recipe of risotto. So there's 15 grams of butter in there. And that is ready for gentle sweating. Now we want to be gentle when we are sauteing these onions. We want to bring up the temperature, we're going to melt the butter, we're going to have the onions swim in there. But we don't want to add any color. We don't really want to burn the butter or the onions. They just need to be softened up a little bit until they're translucent almost. Gently cook them over a medium heat. We're going to be adding the rice grains, we're going to stir them in well, and then we're going to be adding little bits of chicken stock, bit by bit, to cook it till it's almost cooked to perfection. So there's going to be a little bit of time between preparing this rice and before we're going to sit down at dinner. And what is so great about risotto is that you have the ability to cook it half, but once you finish it, it's a dish that needs to be eaten on the spot. So we're going to be cooking the rice grains until 95%. Just a little bit too much bite left. Then we're going to be adding the Parmesan cheese and last bits of stock just before we serve, when the fish is already cooked, when everything is ready to go. And then you have that nice and creamy sauce filming around the rice grains, which is going to really make this risotto so delicious and creamy that everybody is going to wonder if you are Italian or not. Low heat, starting to bubble. I'm turning down the fire a little bit, making sure that these onions are cooking slowly, evenly, making sure they don't burn or do not change color. Because you're going to see it later on in the risotto. Once it's cooked in the rice, you're going to see all this little bit of burned onion, which is really not nice. You want to make sure that this is done gently. When these are cooked, we'll be adding our risotto rice and stir that in nicely. We're going to have to heat that grain really nice and nice through. It needs to have a little bit of heat to release those starches. Make sure that it's going to absorb all of that stock afterwards and all that flavor. Going to put in a pinch of seasoning just already, so these rice grains already get the flavor enhancement. Gentle stirring, wooden spoon. We don't want to break the rice grains, but we do want to move them. The more you move the rice grains, the more it will release the starches, and that is what is in the end going to give that beautiful sauce around the risotto. And sometimes you get a risotto and it's kind of just grains swimming in a liquid. That is not what we want. That is not risotto. No, a beautiful risotto is moved all the time. It's made sure that you add chicken stock or other type of stock little bit by little bit. And what it does is it makes friction on the rice grains, and these rice grains are rubbing off starch every time you move it. That's all going to be absorbed in the sauce and going to bring this risotto to absolute perfection. So the rice grains are really nicely coated, nice and hot, did not change color. Gonna add a tiny bit of stock. So I have a larger amount of stock ready because I want to make sure that I can make that risotto creamy. Rice will keep absorbing moist until it is completely mush. And what we want to prevent obviously is that from happening, but we do want to have enough stock to always make sure that it is nice and creamy. That by the time we are serving, those rice grains are swimming in this beautiful sauce. So we're adding just a little bit at a time so we can build up friction to make sure that all that starch is rubbing off from the rice grains, cooking them nice and evenly. We have to make our pine nut crunch, we have to prepare our asparagus, and we have to grate the Parmesan, of course. But we're going to start with the pine nuts. They need about 7-8 minutes in the oven. I do that again on 180 degrees. Try to keep track, put your little alarm, make sure that you don't forget. We don't want to have these pine nuts burning in the oven while we're busy stirring our risotto, working on those starches and blah blah blah, whatever the chef all said. Making sure we keep track of everything. Our monkfish is nicely getting in the fridge. That pancetta is stiffing up, and once that comes out, we're going to be frying it in the pan. That pancetta is going to be really nice and crunchy on the outside, and that fish is going to be cooked gently all the way to the inside. That's the perfect time to serve. I'm going to top that up with a little bit of the sage and the pine nut crunch, and this is going to be a delicious dish. There's few ingredients, there's not many tricks to it, but once again, it's really important that we get those things right. Make sure that we get the rice right. Make sure that we get the fish cookery right. Adding tiny bits of stock at a time, stirring gently. So then we'll do a beautiful seasonal asparagus. And we'll grate the Parmesan. I'll use the box grater, but any grater will do, doesn't really matter. We want to make sure that we have enough. Parmesan is yummy, gives a saltiness to the dish. Very important to keep in mind, Parmesan obviously has quite a bit of salt in it. It is a really well-aged cheese. And we don't want to be adding too much salt to our risotto initially, because it's the Parmesan that is really gonna give it that flavor kick in the end, and it's gonna give it the saltiness that it needs. We need a touch of seasoning, but not much. Lovely, our asparagus. In the meantime, we make sure that the risotto is stirred occasionally, not cooking too fierce. Some dark bits, they tend to be really tough, really want to cut them off. Some go a bit up higher than the others. You kind of have to see it individually for each asparagus, making sure that we only use the best, the most beautiful and most delicious bits. One more stir. You can already see the sauce forming around here, and that's really what I'm trying to talk about when you want to build up the resistance, you want to release those starches. It needs to be a little bit like that. You don't want to put all the stock at once, because the grains won't be rubbing against each other. They won't release the starch. You won't get that beautiful sauce around your risotto that we're so after. It has to reduce all together with the butter and the rice grains, adding a little bit at a time. Adding a little bit at a time. Some tales say you're only allowed to stir one time. Not sure who really believes in that. I'm not a firm believer of that. For me, you can stir left, right, center, in eights, crisscross. Do it as you please. Time for a few knife skills. Always glad to show you how the things are done. I have been banging on it already a few times, but you keep your fingertips in, put them on top, and make long motions with your knife. Try to cut as evenly as possible without putting any pressure. We don't want to push down, we don't want to use force, we want to use the knife, we want to use the length of the blade to make beautiful long strokes. Always the same motion, always minding your fingers. I cut my fingers maybe once a week, twice a week on a bad week. So if it does happen, don't be alarmed. I think every chef has tortured fingers and tortured hands from the times I didn't pay attention. Anyhow, with practice you do get better, it goes easier. There we are, these are our asparagus. Now asparagus, they don't need much cooking. We want to add them to the risotto just before finishing. They need maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and we're not there yet. We do see it's getting thicker and thicker. You see it's really having a nice sauce. It's already hanging around the rice grain. And there we go, our pine nuts, beautifully toasted, lightly, don't need to be too dark. We just want to release those aromas, release those oils, give it a little light brown. They are perfect like that. I'll give it a quick chop of sage, and then we'll season it with some olive oil and some salt, and we'll have a really nice topping for on top of the fish. That's gonna give some texture to this dish, gives it a bit of a nuttiness, and we can cut our pine nuts. Now this doesn't need to be too precise, we can just give it a rough chop. We do want to kind of touch every nut, but they don't have to be really fine, they're already small. Another cutting technique, the chopping. Put your hand on top of the blade and move it up and down with the others. Very safe for the fingers, very effective way to chop nuts. Also chop herbs, it's a bit of an easier way maybe on the knife skill, although it's not as precise and as quick as folding it up underneath your fingertips. And we'll put the pine nuts in a little bowl. We'll pick a couple of leaves of sage without stems because they're a bit hard. Keep a watchful eye on your risotto. Oh, these grains are starting to cook really perfectly actually. You can see now that the rice grains are swelling up a little bit. I think we're about 60% of the cooking. We're gonna wanna add in our asparagus, give it a 2-minute cook, and then our base for the risotto is done, ready to finish with the Parmesan and a little bit more stock just before serving. The risotto is an easy dish. There's not many ingredients, there's a few, but you have to make sure that you do the things correctly. You have to make sure that you take the timings right, you take the time to really move those rice grains around. You want to really make sure that you get that sauce in the end. If you don't have the sauce, the risotto is not going to be a success. It's not going to be the way it's intended. But this is cooking beautifully together. The asparagus are in now. We'll only need another minute or two. Little drop of chicken stock. And in the meantime, we're gonna have some time to finish our crunch, and we're gonna go and put the monkfish in the pan, sear it nicely around, and give that a gentle cook as well. As we did before, I'll fold it up together with my fingers, and I make my nice gentle strokes, cutting them out really thinly. And I want to give it a cross cut as well, so they're not too long. It has to really go around the pine nuts. Always using my finger as a guidance, whatever technique I'm using on the cutting. There we go. You get a pinch of coarse salt, drop of olive oil. Super simple, super delicious pine nut and sage crunch. You can see right here. That's gonna be an amazing topping. Now that's it for the moment for our risotto. So we have added the asparagus. The rice grains are cooked for the largest part. Now we're gonna leave it like this. So once we have done the monkfish, we're gonna finish it off. We're gonna add the Parmesan, gonna get a bit more stock. We're gonna finish it off, make the creamy sauce around the rice grains, perfectly in time to do our cooked monkfish. Place it on top, finish with the pine nut crunch. Absolutely wow. So for the monkfish, thick bottom skillet, non-stick, over medium heat. Again, we don't want too high of a heat. The pancetta is really thin, it can curl up, it can burn very easily. We really don't want to do that. We're going to be using a little bit of olive oil or a regular oil, don't really mind. We don't want to bring up temperatures to smoking hot. Here we want to put gentle and really beautifully all the way around the fish, so the fish cooks slowly and evenly all the way to the inside. Touch of oil, and then we're going to be adding a little bit of butter and some sage leaves as well at the end. So once it's already roasted and nice and crispy, we add a little touch of butter just to give that flavor. Sprinkle a few leaves of sage in the pan. All that flavor is going to be absorbed and going to be roasting around the monkfish. It's going to look absolutely divine when you do that. Fish cookery is tricky. It can easily stick to the pan, it can easily get overdone, it can easily fall apart, but I do find that monkfish is a forgiving fish. It is a really nice, firm flesh, beautiful product from the sea that, especially prepared like this in the crunchy pancetta, is going to give you such a flavor sensation. It's going to be so delicious when it comes out perfectly. Timings here, quite important. We only have two real things to do here, but we need to make sure that we keep our focus on, because here's where we can make or break this dish. If we do one or the other wrong, it's not going to be as nice as we wanted it to be. Just want to make sure we get the risotto cooked to absolute perfection. Monkfish nicely roasted in the pan, add that butter, add the sage, finish off the dish, nice slices on top in a beautiful plate. It's going to be such a delicious dish. Can't wait till this is done. And we're ready to go. Gentle, not too much heat. You feel it go in. It's sizzling, but it's not smoking, it's not fiery, it's not heavy, it's not harsh, the fire, and we really don't want that, because we want that fish to cook gently and slowly, so it retains all the moisture inside. So it's going to be really, really nice and juicy when we bite into it. And monkfish really has that ability that when you bite and the juices flow in your mouth, it's so delicious. The pancetta is going to make sure that all of that stays in the pan, make sure that all of that stays inside the fish, and then once you carve into it in your plate, wow, absolute heaven. Reduce the heat a little bit. Now slowly cooking on all the sides, giving it a turn, making sure none of it burns, making sure that the pancetta gets really nice and crisp on all the sides. It's absolutely gorgeous, nice and roasted. Opens up a tiny bit, doesn't really matter, that is fine. Pancetta sometimes curls up, that's no problem. Now this is beautifully roasted. Gonna add a little touch of butter and get a few sage leaves. We're gonna be adding that to the pan just before the end. See how gorgeous that is roasting. All the way over the monkfish. sage leaves. It's gonna give all that aroma into the butter. Wonderful. We'll turn off the heat, let it slowly raise into the monkfish and cook it very gently. We'll finish it off in the oven just before serving. Then it's time to finish our risotto. Monkfish is cooking, almost done. Pine nut crunch ready, almost done. Heat back on the risotto. We're gonna be finishing up. We're gonna add a little bit of stock, we're gonna add a little bit of Parmesan cheese. We're gonna make that sauce around the rice grains really beautifully. These grains are almost cooked now, so now timing is of the essence. Make sure that we have our plate ready, make sure that we have our pine nut crunch ready. Our monkfish is beautiful, perfectly cooked. It's just that heat is coming up from the pan very gently now. Risotto has to run. It can't be a soup, but it really has to run. It needs to be soft and yummy, and when you eat your spoonful of risotto rice, it's just gonna be melting in your mouth. It's gonna be absolutely delicious. I've always loved risotto, and to do it right, it's not difficult, but you need to make sure that you keep note of these few details, especially with the finishing, especially making sure that once you finish your risotto, you start eating it right away. You want to make sure that the rice does not absorb all the moisture and becomes heavy to eat, because that can really ruin. We'll be adding Parmesan cheese. Loads of it. It's stellar. That's going to be ready for us to carve. Going to be cooked all the way through. Doesn't need any more. Just going to take it out of the pan, leave it to rest for a little bit. With fish and with meat, both of them really benefit from a little resting time. In this case, if I was going to carve it now, the juices will run out and you're not going to be able to eat them, so that will be a shame. We want to make sure that we wait, give it a few minutes time to rest, then we carve into it. We're gonna have these nice slices of beautiful cooked monkfish with the pancetta, the creamy sauce of the risotto. There it is, you can really see the sauce forming. It's because we move the rice grains constantly. All those starches have unleashed, and now together with the Parmesan, it's gonna bind it all together to this gorgeous sauce, delicious. Want to taste for the seasoning? Make sure we're at the right spot. But the Parmesan is really lifting this up all the way until exactly where we need it. We didn't need to add any salt. It was the Parmesan that really seasoned this dish, really made it up to the rice grains, beautifully cooked. It's runny. You can see it is running off the spoon, but there's a really nice thick sauce there. I'll leave it to rest for a little bit. The rice is going to absorb a bit of sauce. The consistency is going to be perfect. We're going to be cutting our monkfish, and this dish is going to be ready for plating. We'll finish it up with our crunch, just a little decorative leaf of the sage, and you have an absolute stunner of a dish. And when you cut into this, you can already feel it. It is melting in the mouth like butter. Absolutely gorgeous. Perfectly cooked all the way through. Just want to move that risotto a tiny bit more. Here I really can feel the consistency coming together. If you're too quick, the sauce is going to form on the outside of the rice grains. Once you plate it up, you're going to see it, and that's not what we want. We want to stir this a little bit more, release a little bit more of the starches, bind it together with the Parmesan, and that's it. I'm going to spoon the risotto into the plate. Make sure we add enough of the liquid. That's really what makes it delicious. We want that risotto to be really nice and creamy, crispy in the pancetta. Finish it off with our pine nut crunch right on top. Lots of texture there, lots of flavor. Tidy up the plate just a bit. And there you go. That is my green asparagus risotto with monkfish rolled in pancetta with a pine nut and sage crunch.